Gonna get this one out of the way now so that I don't get bombarded with requests in the future. Don't even really need an intro, you read the title, you know why you're here. It's time for Yazov. Good ol' Mr. Clear Skies, who hates the Germans so fucking much he's willing to bring the entire planet down with him. In real life though, I can definitely say he wasn't that crazy. Well, in a manner of speaking. Dmitry Timofeyevich Yazov was born in November of 1924 in the village of Yazovo, which already I need to add a fucking asterisk here. I could literally find no information about this place other than the fact that it exists, so whether he was named for the village or the village was named after its most famous resident, I genuinely have no idea. All you need to know is that it's east of Omsk. He was born to a peasant family having 3 siblings. Like most of these people that I talk about, fuck all is known about his early life because those details aren't the most important or the most interesting to most people. I'm sure I could find more details somewhere, but I can't read Russian and Google Translate is notorious for being dog shit, so I'ma say he's an enigma. His life would probably have been pretty normal until, of course, Hitler happened. Yazov was 17 when Operation Barbarossa began, and he would jump at the opportunity to enlist in the military, most likely with hopes of getting the fuck out of Siberia because, you know, who wants to live in Siberia unironically. He never ended up finishing high school and lied about his age to the recruiters to get in, enrolling in the Moscow High Command School, which was actually in Novosibirsk because of some, complications with its home city. He graduated in June of 42, almost immediately being sent to command some rifle formations as part of the Leningrad-Volkov fronts. He had an abnormally long lifespan by Soviet standards, surviving the entire war. Didn't get to go to Berlin, but he fucked around in the Baltics and the Courland pocket for a while. He did not retire after the war ended, instead deciding to stick with the Soviet Army for literally the rest of its existence as an institution. The years immediately following the Second War to End All Wars were actually rather peaceful for the Soviets, other than putting down some rebellions in their vassal, puppet, client, equal partner communist states. Yazov was a major by this point and was gradually climbing the ranks. His next important job wouldn't come until 1962, however, when he was ordered, with a bunch of other tourists, to go take a nice vacation to Cuba. The nuclear missiles in their luggage slipped right past the travesty that is airport security, and suddenly there's an international crisis that could destroy the entire world. Yazov was in overall command of Soviet ground forces in the south of the island, with orders to blow up Guantanamo Bay if the Americans tried anything. Thankfully, nobody did, so everybody packed up and went back to Russia. He briefly commanded the 32nd Army Corps in the late 60s and early 70s, later being reassigned to the Central Group Force, which was a large formation of troops in Czechoslovakia charged with keeping the boot on their necks after they tried to start shit. So far, this guy's been pretty lukewarm in my opinion, but that's about to change. Man got this far without using excessive force on civilian populations, but you saw the video length, you know that didn't fucking last. He started by getting very lucky. He met Mikhail Gorbachev and the two got along, so Yazov got promoted a bunch of times and then was made Minister of Defense in 1987. Well, if you didn't know, around this time, the Soviet Union was falling apart at the seams, and pretty much the only thing holding it together was the army, which had just gotten done swallowing dust in Afghanistan and was getting progressively more disgruntled. Despite being, by this point, a fundamentally broken, bloated, corrupt, backwards, and stagnant institution, the Red Army was still fucking gargantuan, and Yazov, being defense minister, was willing to throw it around to at least try and hold the rapidly disintegrating Soviet Union together. This resulted in 2 major operations being ordered, at least partially, by him, one in Azerbaijan in 1990 and one in the Baltic states in 1991. Yazov would be made Marshal of the Soviet Union at this time, the highest military rank in the country, in preparation for the shit show that was about to occur. He would be the last person to ever receive the title. Azerbaijan by this point was agitating for independence heavily, even more so than some other Soviet republics. The Caucasus in general were a clusterfuck, but what's relevant to the story is that the Armenian and Azerbaijan SSRs were on the verge of going to war, despite both being part of the Union still. Azeri nationalists were protesting for independence and the ousting of the Communist Party, going as far as taking over many important installations throughout the SSR, and some were quite literally murdering Armenians in the streets. On January 15th, the state of emergency in the SSR was declared, signed by Gorbachev himself, especially for the city of Baku, where things were rapidly hitting a boiling point. Yazov would take to the scene personally to restore order. Late in the night on January 19th, 26,000 Soviet soldiers entered Baku and pacified the place brutally. Over the course of the next day, over 130 civilians were killed and over 800 wounded in resulting operations. This would become known as Black January. It was very much an illegal, excessive use of force against the nearly unarmed populace and officially makes Yazov a war criminal. Whee! Fate is a funny thing though, and literally the next year, almost to the day, Yazov would fucking do it again. As 1990 rolled on, the Union entered freefall, with the Baltic states declaring independence throughout the spring of that year. Yazov, on Gorbachev's orders, dispatched commando teams to various Soviet republics in one last-ditch effort to hold this shit show together. They were sent to neutralize any major threats and seize control over state apparatuses. After a turbulent year for the recently independent Baltic states, the Soviet government made its move trying to reassert control. Throughout January of 1991, the Soviet Army, with support from organized commando raids, attempted to shut down the attempted independence of the Baltic states. In Lithuania, the biggest push was made, and they got very, very close, but they weren't quite fast enough. And a Lithuanian television station was able to broadcast to the world the shit that was going down. 13 Lithuanians would be killed and over 140 injured, and the resulting rioting crowds forced a Soviet withdrawal. Similar events occurred in Latvia, with a large popular effort to resist the Soviets occurring. The Soviet military, possibly ordered by Yazov, carried out a number of bombing attacks, which resulted in a now rather famous operation by the Latvians, constructing a fuckload of barricades with whatever they could get their hands on. The Soviets made their advances, attacking numerous government facilities. However, ultimately they would be defeated after news of the goings-on reached the broader public. 6 Latvians were killed and another 14 wounded. In Estonia, things were much less violent, thankfully, and the Soviet military would be turned back without much bloodshed. There were numerous other crackdowns across the SSR, almost all ending in horrific civilian casualties. However, it was the events in Azerbaijan and the Baltics which were heavily influenced by Yazov himself. The sheer weight of the revolutionary fervor sweeping the Union by this point, combined with everyone suddenly being very upset with the central government, would speed up its rapid implosion, and Yazov now found himself in a very shitty spot. It's in this atmosphere that the August coup occurs. The communist hardliners, backed by the KGB, decided that Gorbachev was fucking everything up and decided to get rid of him to prevent total collapse of the Union. Yazov, who by this point was a pretty old guy, was brought on board and gave his support for the coup. The coup would initially succeed, as we all know, and for several days the entire world seemed glued to the coverage of it. Boris Yeltsin went to Moscow and held up in the Parliament building, which was quickly surrounded by the army elements loyal to Yazov, and everything was extremely fucking tense. But at the last moment, Yazov seemed to lose his composure, and ordered the military to withdraw from Moscow. Honestly, a video on the August coup would be like 20 minutes long, so I'm gonna skip right to the end. The coup fails, Gorbachev resigns, Yeltsin takes over, Yazov is arrested along with his other conspirators, and the Soviet Union finally disintegrates completely by the end of the year. It turned out that no amount of blood could hold that clusterfuck together, and now all Yazov could do was await his fate. Firstly, he lost his job as defense minister, go figure. He reportedly begged Gorbachev to not have him executed for treason, because again, he was an old-ass man by this point, and could realistically plead ignorance. In 1994, he would be prosecuted for his role, however he would be acquitted, as well as being discharged from the army. The rest of his life was uneventful, with him working as an advisor to the General Staff Academy and, of course, doing your standard retired veteran ceremonial stuff. On February 25th, 2020, he would die of an unspecified illness at the age of 95. Yeah, that's Yazov. War crimes are fun. I shouldn't fucking say that. Didn't have anything in mind for a closing paragraph here, honestly. He's Yazov. He's the funny trial man. What more is there to say? Why am I even here? Oh well. Rockwell is next. It's time for real gamer hours. That about does it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.